Good morning. This is Ted Murmagos. I am the Division Director here at the Delaware Division of Child Support Services. And this is the monthly Facebook Live event that we hold here at the Division of Child Support Services to provide information about what's going on here at the Division of Child Support Services. This is the monthly event we hold on the first Monday of every month. The Child Support Connection is my way to hopefully provide some information to custodial parents and non-custodial parents who have child support related issues or those individuals who maybe don't have a child support case but are looking to find out how to go about doing so. One of the great things about the Child Support Connection, the thing that I like the most, is to be able to answer your questions related to your child support situation. Now, sometimes I don't have the answer to all of the questions, but if I do, I try to provide the best answer possible. But if I don't, I try to get you in touch with your child support specialist who can assist you with dealing with your child support concerns. One of the things that I also want to try to stress to folks is that if you know a custodial parent, or even in my thinking, a non-custodial parent who is having difficulty with their child support case, please refer them to our Facebook page, and they can see past videos that I've done and can get information about how to jumpstart their particular situation. Non-custodial parents, as we all know, are vital to the child support process. Those are the folks that we receive child support payments from. Without them, this process doesn't work. And one of my goals as division director is to try and get as many non-custodial parents who are not on track back on track with their child support situation. One of the things I also, in my day-to-day activities, when I communicate with a non-custodial parent and I look at their child support case and I see that they are making consistent child support payments, I always recognize that if I'm communicating with a non-custodial parent by telephone or by email. I'm always recognizing the fact that they're making those payments as ordered by the family court. So, it's so important to me to have contact with non-custodial parents and help them understand this child support process. So, like I said, the Child Support Connection, the first Monday of every month. And next month it's going to be Monday, January 2nd. That's the day after New Year's. And I don't know if that's a state holiday now that I think about it for us or not. But if we're not on a state holiday that day, I will be here to do the Child Support Connection. If it is a state holiday, then you can see me. I'll be here the next day. Whether it's Tuesday the 3rd, I will be here to do the Child Support Connection. If you are someone that has tuned into the Child Support Connection in the past, you know what I'm going to do next, and that is to read our mission statement. And again, I do this at the beginning of every video or Child Support Connection because I want people to know what our mission statement here is at the Division of Child Support. So it's our mission at the Delaware Division of Child Support Services to deliver quality customer support by partnering with the parents to improve the lives of children and their families. That's working with both parents to improve the lives of their children and their families. This is achieved through obtaining accurate child support orders to meet the financial, medical, and emotional needs to promote family self-sufficiency and the best outcomes for children in Delaware and around the country. And I see I have a comment that January 2nd is a state holiday. So I will be here Tuesday. Thank you, Heather, Miss Morton, for helping me out there. I will be here Tuesday, January 3rd, next month to do this Child Support Connection. So And I will remind everyone at the end of this video also, or this Child Support Connection episode. So I figured until, if we don't, I always will be checking the comments section here to see if I have any comments, but we can certainly talk about other things that are going on here at the Child Support Office. The biggest change that has occurred over the last month or so was our changeover from PNC Bank to TD Bank. So any check, if you're a custodial parent and you get a child support check from us, if you are a non-custodial parent and you get a refund check from us, those checks are written on on TD Bank accounts, and we're just are reminding folks that if you need to cash that check and you don't have a financial institution, you can go to a TD Bank to do that. So the other side of that coin is that if you are an employer who is making child support payments on behalf of your employees to the Child Support Office, and you're making that payment electronically, there's routing numbers and other numbers that need to be updated in your electronic means of sending us a child support payment. So you should have gotten a notification. If you are an employer of ours, you should have gotten a notification from us that there's been a change and what information you need to do to make those changes to send us an electronic payment. So that's kind of like in the way of updates, some things that have been happening here at Child Support. As we all know, the holiday season is fastly approaching, and one of the things I've also said on my I participate in this is a plug for if you want to actually call a radio show. I am doing a monthly radio show in Sussex and Kent County on WGMD. That's 92.7 and not slipping my mind, 89.5, I believe, 89.5. Yeah, in Sussex County and Kent County on WGMD. It's the voice of Delmarva. The third Wednesday of every month, I'm doing a radio show down there. And certainly, just like this Child Support Connection, if you want to call in and ask a question, you can do that, and I will take your question right over the phone and answer it with the help of Jake Smith, who is the radio show personality that I work with. But that's the third Wednesday of every month, and in this month, it is the 21st of December. I will be down there taking telephone calls. So if you have a question, you can certainly ask that question. Jake has been gracious to also accept emails, and I think it's jake.smith@wgmd.com. But you can go to their website and email Jake. He will read your question over the air, excluding personal information like names and that kind of thing. If you feel free, you can tune into that radio show. We always have a very interesting conversation about child support and some of the things that we are doing here in Delaware. Let's see here. What else did I want to talk a little bit about? Lately, let me see. I think there's maybe another comment here. There is a comment. So let's take this question. This is a question coming from Joey Perkins. If I overpaid child support by $5,000 because child support overlooked the child support order and didn't stop taking it out of my paycheck, how do I get reimbursed for those funds? So that's a great question. So oftentimes there may be an overpayment on an account for several reasons. One of the biggest reasons is retroactive court orders that we receive from the family court that decrease the child support's current support obligation and goes back in time. So we have to credit the account because it was a modification decrease. And those adjustments are really done on paper here at the Child Support Office. There's no funds sitting here that would be sent back to the non-custodial parent. So to answer your question, if there is an overpayment on your account and those funds went out to the custodial parent, you would have to file with the family court to have those funds returned to you, and the courts would figure out a way to make that happen, whether payments would be sent directly from the custodial parent back to you, whether the courts would give you a credit on your current support obligation to be deducted from that overpayment. But ultimately, unless, now this gets a little into the weeds, unless that overpayment was on arrears owed to the state of Delaware, that you would have to go directly and get those funds returned to you from the custodial parent. If the custodial parent was on TANF, Temporary Assistance to Needy Families, then that overpayment was to the state of Delaware, we would certainly make sure you got those funds back. But in most cases, it would be your responsibility to file at the family court because there was an overpayment, and the courts would determine how that custodial parent would repay that amount. We at Child Support would provide you with documentation as far as account statements or anything along those lines. I see we have another question. If there is a wage garnishment, but only half of the, I'm thinking that's monetary obligation, is coming out each month, what can be done? So, if there is a wage garnishment or an income income withholding order sent to an employer, if the non-custodial parent, does not make enough to cover what the child support order is, then this is the employer's responsibility here. The employer's responsibility is to send a certain percentage of those funds, and that percentage is identified on that income withholding order. This does not negate the fact that the non-custodial parent is still under that current support obligation for the full amount each month. So when the employer is not able to send enough in because the non-custodial parent has not made enough, the non-custodial parent should be making up the difference. Now, I know a lot of you who are viewing this Child Support Connection are saying, come on, let's get real. That non-custodial parent is not going to do that. Ultimately, anything unpaid would go towards an arrears balance. You could certainly talk to your worker, your child support specialist, about seeing if the Department of Justice would sign off on a petition. Depending on what the ordered amount is and what we're actually receiving in, they may decide, yeah, it's worth taking it back to family court. But ultimately, when we talk about income withholding orders, I want to make sure this is perfectly clear. When we talk about income withholding orders, the employer is obligated to send in the full amount unless that non-custodial parent does not make enough in that paycheck to cover that amount, and then they would send in a lesser amount based on the consumer credit protection limit. But the non-custodial parent is always responsible to make up the difference. And I see we have it looks like a follow-up question. I found out it was through TANF, and DCSS is who showed me how much I'd overpaid and did not give me any papers to file. Basically told me I was on my own with it better. So, if that overpayment was to TANF, then we can certainly, and I would certainly like to take a look at your particular case, and we can determine whether those funds can be returned to you. And if it's into TANF, we should make that adjustment and get it back out to you. However, if it's, like I said earlier, if it's to a custodial parent, then my suggestion would be to go to family court, In all of the family courts here in Delaware, there's 3 of them, 1 in each county. You can ask to speak to someone in the resource center at family court, and they can help you file the appropriate paperwork. And just tell them what your situation is, and they can help you file the appropriate paperwork. But if it is through TANF, we should be able to make an adjustment on the account and get those funds back to you. So my suggestion would be to send us a DM or a personal message with your account number. The only reason why I'm asking you to send us a message is because your name is a little, it's common. So there may be multiple individuals with your name. So if you send us your name with your date of birth, or DM with your date of birth, or with your child support case number, myself and our community relations officer can get the case looked at by the child support specialist and work through that process if it was paid to TANF. So I hope that helps clarify my previous answer. But if you want to file something, this goes to anybody. If there's something that needs to be filed at family court, you can go to any of the family courts here in Delaware, and they all have a resource center that can, there's people that work in that resource center and can help you determine what the appropriate document is to file, and they can answer your questions about that document and what steps to take to get the information that you need to answer those questions. Let's see here. I just want to make sure there's no more questions. But yeah, so when we talk about child support, and he kind of talked a little bit about this the last person who wrote a comment, Mr. Perkins. We talked a little bit about TANF, and you're welcome. And yeah, send us a message. Thank you. So we talked a little bit about TANF. When a custodial parent is receiving TANF, that's Temporary Assistance to Needy Families, we get a case automatically here at the Division of Child Support Services. And also when the custodial parent is receiving Medicaid. And we will, it's our responsibility to make sure that if the custodial parent is on TANF or receiving Medicaid, that we work that case. The first step in the child support process is to establish paternity. Paternity is so important for the child or children on a child support case, and it's really so important that the paternity of a child follows them through their life. And when a non-custodial parent either acknowledges paternity through the voluntary acknowledgement of paternity projects, the process that we have at child support, or admits on the record at family court that they want to be deemed the biological parent of the child, the first thing that gets done is the birth record at the Office of Vital Statistics is updated with both parents' names. And throughout that child's life, if there's a need to know who the biological parents are, that information is there. And it stems from everything from Social Security benefits to railroad benefits to having a medical history. And in my mind, one of the most important things is that child can identify that this is my biological dad, this is my biological parent. And that helps build that emotional strength that the child needs. But that's one of the first things we are required to do, is establish paternity for any child that comes over on a child support case. Now, if the parties are married, then paternity is already established for the child. And it's only when the child is born out of wedlock that child support would either help the parents with the voluntary acknowledgement of paternity process, or help them get genetic testing done. And we can help parents do that. And one of the things and this is kind of a little side note here, this past legislative session that ended on June 30th, we were able to pass legislation that would basically restrict minors from signing a voluntary acknowledgement of paternity. So if you're a minor and you have a child, we would restrict you. We would not allow you to sign a voluntary acknowledgement of paternity form, but we would help you get genetic testing completed and help you through that process, so that the identity of both parents can be done through genetic testing, the genetic testing process, and the court adjudication process. Our thought process behind that was, we don't want minors signing a voluntary acknowledgement of paternity form, and we would rather help them through the process of getting genetic testing done. Now, this new law that passed this past legislative session does not become effective until April of 2023, and we're currently working on some processes to help get that new legislation, get a process in place here at the Child Support Office. But we were very happy to get that legislation passed. So after genetic testing is completed, our employees, I got a new question, so we'll go back to the comments. My son's father has established residence, but DCC, I'm assuming that's child support, has yet to be able to locate him, which baffles me. Can you assist? It's been years, please help. He lives down the street from me. So, this may be something also, child support. This may be something also that we may need to take a closer look at your particular situation. Just to give people a little background, whenever a petition is generated for new support, that very first petition that's generated with the family court, we have to make sure that that in this case, that the non-custodial parent is personally served. And we have a vendor that we use that goes out and bangs on doors, knocks on doors to serve people with that petition. And it looks like we're having difficulty serving this individual, even though the custodial parent, in this case, has confirmed that this is where he lives and this is where he's been living, and we should be able to serve him at that location. So in this particular situation, we would take a closer look at her case and determine why the service of process individual is having difficulty serving him. And if we, in some cases, have to reach out to the service of process company and give them more specific information, and that's something that I would like to do. I can't even get an order because they can't locate them. Yeah, this is something that we would, what we need to do in some cases, and this is something we're going to have to do in your case, is provide, and we will be in contact with you about trying to gather some more information from you that will help us. And we will also use our locate tools like Division of Motor Vehicle Information to nail down a specific time that we can send a service of process company, service of process individual to his home to have him served. Sometimes the family court, when we provide them with, hey, we have information or new information to have this particular person served, it does take a little bit of time to get the court to provide us with the necessary documents for the service of process company to go back out. But we can certainly take a look at your particular situation and provide that service of process company with more information. We may also need to contact the family court to let them know we have better information and we want to move forward with the service of process in this case. So I got to put my glasses on. So we'll certainly be in contact with you about trying to get him located and served, which is the most, that's obviously the thing that we need to get done. I just want to go back and make sure I didn't miss anything. He lives down the street from me. Yeah, so we will, in most cases, be in contact with you about getting some other information about the service of process assistance that you may be able to help us with. Just want to here. In my case, they kept attempting to file at a prior address and not the current address. Okay, so yeah, they're just providing some other information. So we will be in contact. I'll look up your case too after this child support connection is over, and someone will be in contact with you just to make sure we got the most current information, and we'll find out what the status of that petition is at family court, and discuss having service of process started over, or picked up where we left off. The one thing about service of process, I'm writing down your name real quick. One of the things about the filing of that petition, and the petition is filed with family court, and that's when the clock starts. So if we have difficulty serving him, if that petition is still filed with the family court, the courts will go back to the date that petition was filed. So there should not be any time lost, and the courts can go retroactive, can go back in time, and when they put him under an order, to say this order starts effective the date that it was filed at the family court. I'm just checking my phone to see if my employees who are watching the Child Support Connection are texting me anything that I need to make sure but they're not. So I will take a look at your case, find out what the status of the petition is and the service of process, and I will get with the child support specialist to take the steps to move this case forward. And it may result in us contacting the court and getting an update on the situation. Let's see here. Yeah. Okay. So after genetic testing is done, the next step is, and we kind of just talked a little bit about it, is the petition for new support is generated, and locate service, service of process is done, and service of process is done by a vendor that we contract with. They actually go out and will serve the individuals with a copy of the petition, and then the courts will schedule a date for a hearing. May start at mediation, and in some cases it can go to a commissioner's hearing. I'm just reading some of your comments here. They have his current address where he lays his head at night with his other children, but I'm still not able to get. It's ridiculous. I'm not getting. Yep. Okay. So I will take a look at your situation, and we will find out where to go from there. But so, there's a lot of steps in this process, and non-custodial parents who try to avoid service, one of the things I can tell you is the only thing that does is prolong the inevitable, because at some point you're going to be served. And like I said, that first order for child support goes retroactive, and it's just going to cause your arrears balance to increase. So it's better just to be served and go to family court. The family court will tell you to bring certain documents with you related to, this is for both parties, custodial and non-custodial parent. Will tell you to bring financial information with you, and the courts will use that financial information to determine what the child support obligation is going to be. And one of the things I always tell the individuals too is, if you are told to go to court and you don't bring that financial information, it's only going to work against you because the courts could determine that you make more than you actually do and use that to perform the child support calculation. And you don't want the court to use information that is not accurate in determining what your obligation is going to be. So you always want to provide the court with an accurate financial information so that they know what to attribute your earnings for as far as the amount that you're going to be ordered to pay. But it's so important for both parents to bring that information. And as far as I know, when you're summoned to go to mediation, those hearings are being conducted by Zoom, virtual video conferencing. So you don't actually even have to go to court. You just do it over your telephone or your computer. It's only if you have to go to a commissioner's hearing will they tell you that you have to show up to the court hearing. So I think that's also very beneficial to both parents who are working and need to can't maybe take off time from work. So one of the things I always say on the radio, and I always say when I'm talking to non-custodial parents, is don't ignore letters from either the child support office or the family court, because in both cases the courts want to work with you and child support wants to work with you. And usually if we're sending you a letter, custodial or non-custodial parent, something has taken place or something is going to take place on your account or your child support case, and you should know what that is. And if you're a non-custodial parent, you may want to try to avoid some of the actions, and by contacting us, usually 9 times out of 10, by contacting us, a situation can be averted. So I'm always telling people, don't ignore a letter from the child support office. We want to help you maneuver through this system. This system is complicated, so we want to help people maneuver through that child support system. Just want to make sure there's no other questions in the comment section. So I thought what I could do is talk a little bit about how we receive child support payments from employers or non-custodial parents. At child support, we are actually thinking of ways to expand how non-custodial parents can make those child support payments to us. And so right now, there's 4 ways that we get payments from non-custodial parents. Of course, the first is by check or money order. And usually that takes place if the courts order a purge payment. So if someone's going to be either incarcerated for non-payment of child support, the courts will say, in order to avoid that from happening, you need to make a lump sum payment. And you can go to any of the 3 child support offices and make a lump sum payment, but it has to be by check, certified check, or money order. We do not accept cash at any of our offices. And in Newcastle County only, we have a drop box. And the reason why we have a drop box only in Newcastle County is that's where our state disbursement unit is. In Kent and Sussex County, if you have to make a payment to avoid being incarcerated or to get your license returned to you, you can go to the office. You can go to all 3 of our offices, speak to a child support specialist, and make that payment, and we will help you get that check or money order payment processed. The second way is by order of income withholding. And I talked a little bit about this earlier because of the question that we had in the chat. But in 99% of the cases that come out of the family court here in the state of Delaware, all 3 counties, they're going to say that an order of income withholding is going to be sent to your employer. Your employer is to make a deduction to your paycheck every pay period and send that payment to the Division of Child Support. I always say this, and I'm going to say it again today. Without the employers, child support around the country would not be as strong as it is, because employers really do send us a majority of the payments that are due for child support. In Delaware, about 77% of all payments we receive come from a wage withholding issued to an employer. So it's critically important to the child support program that we engage the employers in this process. An employer, we often get asked, from custodial parents, if an employer receives a wage withholding, they have 7 business days to get that wage withholding put into their accounting system. And a deduction should be coming from that person's paycheck. As soon as that wage withholding is processed into their system, the next pay period, a deduction should be coming out for child support. Oftentimes custodial parents are a little concerned about the amount of time that it takes, but it is actually very efficient. And once that process is set up in the employer's computer system, payments are usually consistent and are coming into the child support office regularly. The third way is through iPay Online. That is a website. Man, this website, if you are a non-custodial parent or an employer, you can go to iPay Online. That's IPAYONLINE.com. And you can make a payment to the Division of Child Support Services electronically by a payment being withdrawn from your checking account, your credit card, your credit union account, your debit card. You can set it up so that it's a one-time payment through iPay Online, or you can set it up so every month on the 15th, I want a payment to be sent to the Division of Child Support Services for X amount of dollars. You can have it come out every week, every Friday. But iPay Online is an excellent way to make those payments electronically to the Division of Child Support Services. And then the last way that we accept payments, and actually I'm going to make a correction to that. The fourth way is through the TouchPay kiosks. And if you go to any of the DMVs here in Delaware or the probation and parole offices here in the state, you can make a payment through a kiosk. This is the only way you can make a cash payment, is through those kiosks. And the payment is sent to us electronically, and we will process that payment accordingly and send it out to the custodial parent. Those are the kiosks at the DMV or probation and parole offices throughout the state of Delaware. And I'm gonna need to update my presentations because there is a fifth way, a new way to make payments to the Division of Child Support Services, and that is through our customer service unit telephone number. There is an option if you call 577, that's 302-577-7171. There is now an option, a new option, to make a payment via the telephone to the Division of Child Support Services. So I encourage people to check that out, try it out, and you can make those payments to us through the IVR, the voice response system, by calling 302-577-7171. Now, we're also, I say I got a new comment, but I wanted to mention while we're talking about payment methods, we are exploring, and hopefully over the next several months, we'll be able to implement a process where non-custodial parents and employers can make payments to the Child Support Office through PayPal and Venmo. Those are going to be coming online hopefully in the next 3 to 6 months. So, I encourage people to stay tuned to that. So I see we got a couple more questions or comments in the chat. So let's just see here. He keeps threatening me that he will get shared custody once he is mandated to pay child support. Is that true? Right now he sees his son maybe once a month. when it's convenient to him. And sorry about all the questions. No big deal. Keep those comments or questions coming. So a couple things. The first thing is this. The Division of Child Support Services does not really get involved in custody or visitation matters, but so I really would like to stay away from that. I know that when the court creates a child support order, sometimes they actually do look at how many times the child or children is spending, and it's going to sound kind of silly, but how many times the child is spending overnight at each parent's home. So, and they do use that information sometimes to weigh the amount of child support that can be ordered by the court. So, my thing is this, anytime someone threatens or talks about doing something with custody or visitation, that's something that also has to be petitioned or filed at the family court. There's hearings involved, there's discussions that happen. So my suggestion would be, if that does happen and he files a petition for custody or visitation, certainly you could reach out to a private attorney. They may be able to help you with dealing with those filings. But right now, based on the information you're providing in the comments section, I'm not necessarily thinking there's going to be any issues with the courts moving forward with a child support situation. So, and I really do appreciate your comments and questions. So feel free to, this is what you could do. Recommend this Child Support Connection to someone you may know who also is involved in child support. And has a child support situation, and have them tune in. And I love the fact that my employees and coworkers are viewing it, and they're sending me suggestions that I can mention to you. So if you are looking for it, I'm assuming this is what my coworker is telling me. If you're looking for help with legal services, you can always contact 211. And they can help you with trying to nail down if you need help with legal services to help deal with custody and visitation issues. So thank you for your comments and questions, and I certainly do appreciate you tuning in. So, and what we were talking about was payments, and how we receive payments from non-custodial parents or their employers. iPay Online is a really, I can't talk about that enough. It's really an efficient way to make payments. And I'd be interested to hear folks who have made payments through our new telephone service by calling the 302-577-7171 number and seeing how those payments are processed and how well that system works. We'd be interested in some feedback on that process. Let me see here. Yep, this is perfect. Thank you. Okay, so I'm glad about this new comment, because that's one of the things I wanted to talk about too before this Child Support Connection ends. The person in the comments mentioned the Child Support Portal or the website. We have at Child Support, if you have a case number, and all of the people who have commented in the chat section, you all have a case number here at Child Support. You can go to my.delaware, that's my.delaware, spelled out, .gov, and you can actually create a username and password to have access to your child support case. Some portions of your child support case, I better say it that way, like account statements, or by emailing the assigned, and I'm specifically saying it this way to answer your question, You can have the ability to communicate with your assigned child support specialist who will respond to you via a quasi email system. So if you're having trouble reaching someone through our customer service unit telephone number, this is an awesome way to communicate with the child support office. You can provide updated address information, updated employer information. This is for custodial and non-custodial parents. If you don't know what your case number is, you can contact our customer service unit and we will give you your case number. And you can sign up through my.delaware.gov for the child support website it's the child support customer website. And you just create a username and password and you get some good information about how to communicate with us directly and to receive information about your child support case. So to answer your question, is there a way to contact a specific person that is most familiar with your case? You can only, the system is only set up for you to communicate with your assigned caseworker. But you can contact customer service by calling that 302-577-7171 number and speak to a child support specialist who can also send it to your caseworker to respond back, to talk to you by telephone or through the customer portal. So you can only communicate through that portal with your assigned worker. That's the bottom line. Sorry, it got all the way around to answer that question. But so anyone who has asked a comment or a question in this chat section, you all have case numbers. You can all sign up for the customer website, and I would encourage you to do that. You'd be able to communicate with your worker directly. Yeah, and one of the things this gives me an opportunity to talk about some things too that some of the struggles that we may be having at child support. One of the things I've always tried to live by when I talk about child support with the public, whether I'm taking a telephone call or answering an email, is I always tell and how I communicate to our employees to always be honest. We are experiencing some delayed telephone answering the telephone calls coming into our customer website, our customer service unit. That's why having access to the customer website through my.delaware.gov is so good, because it gives you another way to communicate with us. You don't have to wait on hold on your telephone call. You can communicate with someone directly. But the other thing I wanted to mention, because we have staff shortages, I've mentioned this a couple times when I've been on the radio with Jake Smith. If you know somebody who you think would be a great child support worker, someone who is attentive to answering and being a good worker and a good employee, I encourage people to apply. And even if you have a child support case, if you're a custodial or a non-custodial parent, you can still apply to be a worker here at the Division of Child Support, to be an accountant. We have positions in accounting, we have positions in our operations unit, we have positions in our customer service unit. In Delaware, there's a ton of banks. A lot of people do customer service. Banks, sometimes working for a bank or other industries here in Delaware, you're prone to being laid off. I've been an employee of the state of Delaware for over 25 years. I've never feared being laid off as a state employee. So if you know someone, or if you think you would be a good employee for child support, I'm encouraging people to go to the state's website and look how to apply for child support positions or any other state position that they may feel they qualify for. There are a ton of positions with the state of Delaware, and I'm always encouraging people to apply for those state jobs, and I'm encouraging you to do that also. It doesn't matter if you're a custodial or a non-custodial parent. You can always work for child support. So I'm encouraging people to do that. So this gives me a format or a place that I can encourage people to apply for state jobs. So we've talked a little bit about how we receive child support payments. So I want to mention real quick, and I think I mentioned this last month too, but in Delaware, there is Delaware law that if you are going to receive child support payments from the Division of Child Support, that you have to sign up for direct deposit or to receive our debit card. That's the issued by a U.S. bank, the Relia card, and we can send you an application to enroll in either direct deposit or to receive the Relia card. And the other thing is, we still do issue a few checks each month, but ideally, receiving those payments electronically it's so much better for timeliness. It's efficient, and individuals can not have to worry about lost mail. I just spoke to a custodial parent a couple months ago who, I think it was like 2 or 3 checks she not received from us. A couple hundred, maybe it was even more, like $400 worth of child support that was lost. She had to sign affidavits ×3 for each check, and then she had to wait for us to reissue those checks. I always encourage custodial parents that if you're going to receive child support, even if you don't have an order right now, you should sign up for the Relia card or to receive that payment when you do start receiving them through direct deposit or the Relia card. It's so extremely important to get those checks sent timely, or those payments sent timely. Just trying to think what else has been going on. Could talk a little bit about TANF again. Sometimes there's some confusion over when a custodial parent is receiving TANF. Again, that's temporary assistance to needy families. And I only mention this because recently we've had a couple calls to the director's office here. When someone is receiving TANF from our sister agency, the Division of Social Services, any child support that they receive, so they receive a grant from the Division of Social Services, but they would also receive a couple other payments, potentially receive a couple other payments from the child support program through the Division of Social Services, depending on if the non-custodial parent is making regular payments to us. So if the non-custodial parent is making regular payments for child support, the Division of Social Services will also send a supplemental check and potentially a disregard check to the custodial parent. But it's based on information that we share, child support shares, with the Division of Social Services. If someone is receiving TANF, the Division of Child Support Services will not send any payments directly to the custodial parent. Those payments are issued by the Division of Social Services. And the only reason, like I said, why I'm mentioning it today is recently we've had several calls to our office because custodial parents are expecting to receive payments when they're on TANF. They're expecting to receive it from us, and we don't issue those checks. Those checks are issued by the Division of Social Services. So there's oftentimes some confusion over that, and we want to make sure that custodial parents know that if they were due a check for a supplemental payment or a disregard payment, that they contact the Division of Social Services. There's a whole process over there that they can determine what that amount is, and if they were due to receive a payment actually. So there is a process in place to make that happen. And that's how that works. And I always want to make sure people understand that because sometimes there is confusion over that particular issue. Trying to see if there's any other questions. I don't see any. Let's see. What else can I talk about? Yeah, paternity is so important. I I can't stress that enough, how important establishing paternity is. I was seeing in the comments that I'm glad that paternity was established for your son, because that's so important. And right, one of the things too I often talk about, it's sometimes it's hard for people to deal with each other, and for the purposes of child support, it really does. And this is for both parents. Both parents really need to work together. And one of the things, I often talk to when I'm talking to non-custodial parents, especially those non-custodial parents who, aren't meeting their obligation or have not made a payment in an extremely long time. One of the things I always try to stress to them, that if they could start making payments regularly, and maybe they can't afford what the obligation is. And sometimes I get a lot of grief, I'm going to admit it up front, that custodial parents don't like to hear me say this. But I will often tell non-custodial parents, if you cannot afford what the courts have said, pay something, but pay it regularly, and then get back into family court and file for a modification of your order. And pay what you can in the interim, but pay that obligation regularly. It's going to go a long way with the family court. It's going to go, in some cases, a long way with the custodial parent. If they see a positive track record of consistent child support payments, I really try to encourage non-custodial parents to do that. Custodial parents sometimes don't like to hear me say that, because they, understandably, they feel the non-custodial parent should be paying what the courts have ordered. But sometimes it's just not possible. And I often encourage non-custodial parents to go back to court and file a modification to get that order in the correct amount to something they can afford. By all means, if a non-custodial parent is working, they should really tell us where they're working so that we can issue that wage withholding, that order of income withholding, and let's get those payments in the door. The employer will decide based on what you're making as to what they can send in, but go into family court and file for that modification. The worst thing a non-custodial parent can do is to ignore what the family court has ordered and start to get those payments in the door on a consistent basis. So, that's oftentimes, and I've heard it on, I think last month, one of the custodial parents was a little upset with me because I've said that before, and just trying to encourage non-custodial parents. Sometimes, from the perspective of a non-custodial parent, if they have not made a payment in a long time and they see that arrears balance is so large, they get discouraged and they throw their hands up and they don't want to make any kind of a payment. I'd rather encourage them to make those payments of any kind on a regular basis. As one of my coworkers just sent me a message. It's a good faith payment, a good faith effort if they can continue to make those payments regularly until the family court can modify that obligation. So we are coming to the end of December 2022. We've completed another year of the Child Support Connection. We will be back on Monday, January 3rd. I want to wish everyone who is tuned in today, everyone who's going to be watching this video over the next several weeks and into the next year, happy holidays, happy new year to everyone. Let's try to all do better in 2023 as it relates to child support here in Delaware and around the country. I'll speak for my colleagues around the country. Let's try to do better. Let's try to get those child support payments in the door. I wish everyone a happy holiday season, a happy new year. Stay safe, and thank you very much for watching this video on YouTube, our YouTube channel, on our Facebook page, and I wish everyone a healthy and happy new year. I will see you Tuesday, January 3rd, for the next edition, the first edition of the Child Support Connection in 2023. Everyone, please take care, and I'll see you next year.